Welcome, everyone, to episode 93 of the Launch Your Live show. This is also being broadcast as a podcast as well on your favorite platforms such as Amazon Music and Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Google Play and much more. For those of you who are watching, you can tune in at launcher.live/EP93 to watch along with us, check out some of the products. If you are listening, you can also go to launcher.live/EP93. And with that, I'm your host, Christian Karasiewicz. How are we doing? Welcome to the Launcher Live show. Super excited about this. This is basically a show where every single week we tackle a live streaming topic. And by we, I mean myself, as well as my co-host, Marco Novo. And so I'm going to go and bring on Marco. We're going to kick things off. Marco, it's great seeing you. How you doing?
Hello, hello. Greetings from Portugal. So good to be here again. So hope you're doing all fine.
Fantastic. Yeah. And so for those of you, by the way, who are watching, I should have probably told you what today's topic is going to be. And it's about how to be a more consistent live streamer. And here's the thing. You're probably thinking, well, okay, I can go live every single day or every single week, or, why is consistency so important? And it's because, I like to compare it to building a muscle. So, for example, if you've ever let's say you've not worked out for the longest time, or let's say you didn't work out for like a year, and then you go try to try to lift some weights. It's gonna be hard, and it may seem like, oh, I could do this, but then the next day you're gonna be sore. And I mean, it may be like you may be sore for a week, and it's because you haven't exercised that muscle in a while. And it's the same thing for live streaming. If you want to build a community, you want to get people tuning in, you want to build an engaged audience, you got to be more consistent. And I know that that's hard for a lot of people, right, Marco?
Absolutely. It is, but it's crucial. And let me give you an example of a guy. It was the guy who made my logo. It was the designer who made my logo. And the thing is, he came up and okay, now I'm gonna start creating content as crazy. And he made it for a week. Then he disappeared for 6 months, and then he came back. Okay, now it's for sure. I'm gonna do this 1 week, morning, noon, middle of afternoon, evening, whatever. And 1 week after, he disappeared again, and he made this kind of comet thing for a couple of times, and then he disappeared for for the last time. I don't know where he is, but the thing is, besides this consistency and improvement and everything, one thing that for me is crucial about consistency is that people won't take you in the right way if you're not consistent. Okay, if they don't think you're doing that for in a true and good way, so have this in mind as well.
And that's an excellent point, by the way. An excellent point overall, just about obviously like the importance of of building consistency. And so, what we want to do on this week's episode is we want to talk about 5 ways that you can become a more consistent live streamer. And again, there's lots of different things you can be doing, but these are ways to help you get better at what you're doing. And here's the thing. You're going to get to a point where like you've done all these and like, okay, everything's working. Keep it up. Don't ever break that chain. Like I'll give you a quick example. So Jerry Seinfeld is a comedian. I think everybody knows he's a comedian. So he's a comedian. He also is the star of Seinfeld, creator, obviously. So one thing he did to get better at telling jokes, for example, was he would basically tell a joke a day or write a joke a day. And so he built a chain. And so what his goal was, he did not want to break that chain. So if he got, so I think the key thing is once you start being consistent, you got to keep it up. So let's start off with number 1. And Marco, if you have anything you want to bring up product wise, like you just tell me and we'll bring it up as well while we're talking about this. But number 1 for how to be more consistent in your business or your live streams is to add a placeholder. You know what I mean by this, Marco?
I think it's to kind of create a place there you need to go or something?
So, okay. So what I refer to when I say by add a placeholder, it's to put it on your calendar. So to tell yourself, if you're going to go, for example, we go live every week, Marco and I go live. And to help us build that consistency, first off, we make an appointment at the end of every show and we tell ourselves, we say, okay, you know what? When's the next time we're going to go live? And we have a rough idea on what the topic is. And then what we do is we put it on the calendar so that no matter what, it is always on the calendar. It's not something that, like, you know what, if we're going to miss it, like, we better have a legitimate reason behind why we're missing it. But, we basically put it on the calendar. And by the way, one thing I do want to pull up here, Marco, if you can do me a favor, there's I got this, there's a dry erase calendar, actually, I want us to pull up.
Okay.
And the reason I want to talk about this real quick is so you can put it on the calendar multiple ways. One of those is, of course, digitally. So if you've got a calendar app on your smartphone, your tablet, your computer, whatever, put it on the calendar and make it a recurring appointment. If you're going to do, for example, a live stream every week, keep a consistent time with it. And also write it on a calendar that you can keep in front of you. So, for example, I like this one. I like this huge calendar. Yeah, it's huge. But the thing is, I like this calendar because this is something that it's going to help hold myself accountable, because that whole thing of like out of sight, out of mind. So that is the first thing I'm doing. I'm going to put a placeholder on my calendar. I'm going to do two things. Step one is going to be, I'm going to put it on an electronic calendar. And then step two is I'm going to write it on a wall calendar. Now, if I'm out and about and the only thing I have to, only thing I can do is like put it on, a digital calendar, then I better make sure also that to set myself a reminder to put it on that physical wall calendar as well when I'm back in my office, back in my studio. So Marco, what do you think about this one, by the way?
It's a good way. And also when you write it, you're building a commitment. This is something that usually people like to say, and it's true. Once you write it down, you just made a commitment. So you need to go with that. And also, I think maybe we can talk a little bit about this book, Atomic Habits, because I've just listened a couple of weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And one of the things, and this is also important to build habits. And one of the things you should think it's that, and I think it's something that the book stress is these small things we can do, which can lead to great results. Okay. And also attach the actions we need to take with good things, and the habits or the things we want to avoid create bad ideas, bad images about them. And I think it's, for instance, if you want to go live, make it easy to go live. For instance, keep your office clean, keep easy, for instance, to start the broadcast, because I think if you start with so many things to manage, too many lights, too many microphones, or complex microphones, or everything, this could be a problem. So make things easy to make. So that way it will be a nice way to make it easier to go live, and then keep consistency. Because if it's a struggle to start, it will be a struggle to be consistent. And this is something I truly recommend reading or listening to this book. I listen on Audible, okay, because it's a nice way to make you understand that slight hacks or changes that you can make, and they can lead you to amazing results.
Definitely, yeah. And I love this book, by the way. This is one of my favorite books, by the way, Atomic Habit. And I have the physical version of this book, and I got the physical version because I like to take notes in this one. This is a note-taking book. So
I listen to him in the gym.
It gets you motivated. I mean, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah. And by the way, so the next thing I want to talk about, so we're talking about So let's talk about topic number 2. So what's another way to build consistency as a live streamer? And it's to hold yourself accountable. So I mentioned, you know what, put everything on the calendar, put it on a physical calendar, put it on a digital calendar. Marco talked about atomic habits, which is starting small, by the way. So like, for example, step 1 might be ordering that calendar. Well, now that, so when that calendar comes in, don't just like throw it in the closet, put it in your way. Put it in your way. Like, for example, if you go into an office, put it in your way so that like every day you're having to walk around it to the point where hopefully it clicks in your brain. Hey, you know what? I should put that up. So number 2 is going to be to hold yourself accountable. And so why is this important? So we're talking about putting things on the calendar, keeping it at a consistent time, all that sort of thing, right? So don't move the time around. By the way, we're gonna talk about there in a second. But you got to hold yourself accountable. So you put it on the calendar, keep the time the same every single week. Yeah, you know what? You may need to like move it, maybe you do it on Thursday or Friday, something like that, but keep the same time. Don't do it and then like not know, are you going to do it next week or not? You should know the week before if you're going to do it the following week. And the answer is what, Marco? Yes, you are going to do it the following week.
Yeah, absolutely.
So item number 2 is to hold yourself accountable. And so Marco, do me a favor. Let's pull up that Rocketbook. By the way, we got to get Rocketbook. Like we got to talk with Rocketbook. Because I love Rocketbook, by the way. I have this Rocketbook, for example, and we've also got this one that Marco and I are going to bring up about holding yourself accountable. And so, like I said, you put it on the calendar. That makes you, you put it on your calendar. So you block out the time, right? You don't change, don't say like, oh, I'm going to go live this week. And then, oh, I don't know if I'm going to go live next week. Do what actually works. So for example, oh, you know what? We'll get this one in a minute. But basically with the Rocketbook, again, if you're out and about, this is one of my favorite notebooks. The thing I love about this notebook, it's reusable. It writes like a regular notebook. It also, though, has a cool digital component too. Now you can't write in there and say like, oh, I'm going to go live every single week and have it put it on the calendar. That would be a cool idea. Instead, what you can do is you can use this for note taking. So hold yourself accountable. So for example, when you're building out your weekly to-do list, you got your live show as a topic that you're going to do. If you're ever out and about and you're like, well, you know what? Oh, I got to write down all the stuff I need to do. Put it in write everything down. So write what you need to do down. So going back to this is the Rocketbook, by the way. And as I mentioned, this is the Wave model. The one Marco's got is the just the Rocketbook Smart Reusable Notebook. Great notebook, by the way. And then the cool trick to this is you can scan it with their mobile app and it will digitize everything. So if you ever need to like, maybe you want to make notes for your show, take this with you, scan it, write in it, scan it. And then once you've scanned it, you can erase it. So that is the Rocketbook. So that's about holding yourself accountable. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Marco?
The other thing is, and getting back to the example I gave at the beginning, is having in mind the level of availability that you have. Okay, because have in mind, for instance, think about the next 6 months. Yeah. How often can you go live in these 6 months? Because one of the things I see is that people at the beginning, they have lots of times and suddenly they get out of time. So have this in mind as well. Instead of starting with 5 days a week, start 2 weeks, 2 days a week, okay? And then see if it's sustainable for you. Because if you start in a moment that you have more time available and then in a couple of months you won't have that time available and people will notice that suddenly you disappear, this could be a bad movement. So have this in mind as well. The sustainability of your live show during, for instance, 6 months.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love the idea, like, I'm talking about like, if you want to be consistent, like how do you get started? You got to just start doing live streams. And again, you don't have to do like tons of live streams, but do it consistently. We talked about earlier, got to build that muscle. So number 1, add a placeholder. Number 2, hold yourself accountable. Now, Marco, let's do this. Can you do me a favor? Let's bring up I want to talk about this book. It's called The Atomic Habit. And I think it's in here actually. Sorry, Atomic Habit. It's called The One Thing, actually. Sorry.
Okay,
And so there's
okay.
a book. It's called The One Thing. And again, you're going to see Marco and I we recommend books. We recommend, electronics. We recommend notebooks, wall calendars. We recommend all the things that are going to help you.
Yeah, indeed. I think I have this book as well. Let me
Yes,
see.
this is a very good book, actually. I have this book. And this is The One Thing by Gary Keller. And basically there's the Audible version. There's a physical version as well of this, as well as a Kindle option. And basically what this uh, book talks about is this, and I talk about like holding yourself accountable. So one of the biggest challenges that a lot of people have is that they're not actually, well, it goes back to kind of your point you just made. They're too busy. They schedule too many things.
Yep.
And so the thing is that the premise of this book is it's talking about like why it's actually not good to schedule, like you want to schedule things, but you also don't want to have so many big picture items that you forget about like what your goal is. And so this is a super awesome book. It's called The One Thing. There's there's a Kindle version. There's an audio version of this as well through Audible. But it is The One Thing. And again, Marco and I recommend books as well. And these are books that we read. I love this one. I got it on the Kindle and it's so worth it. Oh, Marco's got it. Cool. Do the little hand trick, by the way. Put your hand behind the camera. Let's see if it focuses on it.
Okay, maybe
Not so much, maybe not. But basically,
Okay.
here's the thing. These books are there to help you. So, for example, we talked about, holding yourself accountable. Well, if you're too busy, for example, you're going from one thing to the next thing, and you're like, oh, I'm going to live stream every day. Live streaming, like, for example, Marco and I don't just like start live streaming. It takes more than, if we go for like 1 hour, it takes more than an hour to do a live stream. So if it's 1 hour, that's just doing the live stream. And then there's prep and all the other stuff that's involved in it. So
Yeah.
number 2 we mentioned is hold yourself accountable. Check out The One Thing. Fantastic book. Okay. So now number 3, Marco, on our list of 5 ways to be more consistent as a live streamer is really just a very simple question. Are you serious about live streaming? And can you kind of elaborate on this one, Marco?
Well, I think this is key. Okay. And why it is key? Because there's one day I came with a quote that if it's not hurting, you're not having fun. And what does it mean? That you won't be running the extra mile if you don't like what you're doing. Running the extra mile will hurt you. Making more effort will hurt you, but it's because you love what you like, what you're doing. Okay. So if you are serious about live streaming, you will commit going live. You will commit improvement the quality of your content. You will commit improving the quality of your setup. You will commit coming and showing up and engaging with your audience as well. So have this in mind, because if you're not serious about this, your audience will notice in so different ways that they won't tune in to watch you and to listen to you and ultimately to become your customers. Okay. So have this in mind. It's like, and one day I was talking with a friend of mine about creating content and live streaming. And she said to me, oh, look, but this is a commitment. And I said, of course, you commit every day to open your store and be there to engage with your customers. So it's the same thing. It's your business. So have this in mind as well.
That's an excellent point, by the way. And when we say, like, are you serious about live streaming? I love that example, Marco. Like, if you open a business, so for example, if you're, and this is the downside, you hear all these people that talk about, like, oh, I only work like 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week on my business, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's a joke. It's
Yeah,
not true.
indeed. Or working from the beach.
Yeah, it's not true. Here's the thing. The only
Yeah.
people doing that are people that have, like, the way that works is if you've set up the system to run itself. And
Yeah.
it's possible to set it up, but it's not an overnight thing. It's something that, like, it
Absolutely
takes
not.
years to set that up.
Yeah.
So again, you still have to be hands on to a lot of stuff. Unless here's the other thing. The only other way that, like, that does work is if you've got someone else running your business and you're literally just collecting the money. But
Yeah.
like the
But
thing is, when we talk about,
it's
yeah,
too few people doing that. Have that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, so when we talk about like, being serious, like it means making a commitment to that. So it means like, for example, if and this all stuff builds on one another, by the way. So when we say like, hold yourself accountable, put it on your calendar, for example, right? We say to do all this, and then we say like, oh, are you serious about live streaming? The reason we say all this is because it all builds on one another. So for example, um, when you put it, when you put it on your calendar, then you're making a commitment to yourself. So like you're putting on the calendar, then you got to hold yourself accountable. That means like if you say you're going to do something, you do it. And then when you say, okay, like, are you serious about it? You then have to commit to doing it. And what that means is that you may not get to do certain things.
Yep.
So it is one of those things that, you do have to like commit to. And that means that you're not going to be able to do certain things. It means that you have to make a decision what is more important. So is it going to be, building if you want to get into live streaming, it's not just like, oh, I'm going to go live whenever I want to. I'm going to actually go live and I'm going to build that muscle and get really good at it. So, so if you are consistent and want to be a better live streamer, you got to do the work. And that means like running your show. It means, for example, if you're like, you know what, I want to like grow my live streams. How do you do that? You got to promote it more. You got to get on other people's live streams. For example, Marco and I are simulcasting, I think right now, aren't we, Marco?
Not really.
Okay.
It didn't come.
Okay.
Next week.
Next week. Yeah. So you gotta do those sorts of things, right? So that's absolutely key. If you want to be a more consistent live streamer, are you serious? So you got to make that commitment. You can't just say, oh yeah, I do want to. And it's not about saying it. It's actually about doing it. So if you want to be a more consistent live streamer, you got to do it on a regular basis. And by the way, it's not about buying the most expensive stuff. So for example, if you buy, go ahead, Marco, let's bring up like a camera real quick. So like, if you're going to get into live streaming, a lot of people say like, oh, they say, go and buy it. Like what they say is go and buy a lot of the expensive equipment, and you spend and you could spend easily $1,000, $2,000, whatever on equipment, right? Here's the thing though, that's not going to help. Because here's the thing, just because you spent $200 on this camera does not mean that you're going to be a better live streamer. Like you're going to be a better looking live streamer, but you're not going to be more consistent at live streaming for the most part. Now, there are some people that they will go and spend $1,000 on equipment. And they know that because they spend $1,000, they now have to perform. But I typically wouldn't take that approach. What about you, Marco?
Yeah, I was thinking exactly about that. Maybe because you spend a lot of money, you will be more committed with the live streaming. But I don't take that for granted. I think it's better to commit with other things instead of with the budget you just spent. Okay, but this is a good camera. Okay, and also have in mind that you should practice because just because you look better doesn't mean you sound better. If I made myself clear.
Absolutely, yeah. And so we've got we've got the Elgato face cam. It's a great camera, but it does not mean that you're going to be a more consistent live streamer because you bought a $200 camera. Or Marco, do me a favor, bring up those Rode wireless goes. For example, we talk about like, oh, I want to do more video, for example, and I need a better mic. And we have people that then go and buy a $300 set of Rode wireless goes. Guess what? I have a set of the Rode wireless goes right here. And you know what? Let me show you this. I haven't actually even used them. And here's the thing, and I'm going to say this, like I haven't used them. You can see the plastic is still on them, right? Mm-hmm. Still on them. I think I may have powered them on once. And the thing was that like I got the equipment because I was like, oh, I'm going to use these, but then I also have another mic. And the key thing is there's only so many mics you can use. So if you're serious about live streaming, what you want to do is you want to make the commitment with yourself and you want to go live with what you have. And then off of that, Marco, let's do this. Let's bring up the what's this product? The Samsung Q2U. So we talk about, if you want to be a better live streamer, and about being serious, it's not about buying all that expensive gear. Start with something small. Start with what's built into your laptop and then move into something like this. This is the Samsung Q2U, by the way. Great starter mic for live streaming. Isn't that right, Marco?
Yes, indeed. And we know our friends Chris Stone and Jim Fuse. They both of them use this microphone.
Yeah.
And it sounds really great.
It does. And then it's also got a cool feature. And it's like a party trick, I guess. And it's the fact that if you want to start with this mic, it starts with it has the option for a USB, but then there's also, if you go to that, let's go to that cable on the right, that one with the like silver on the right, with those little 3 prongs. Yeah. That is an XLR cable. And so the great thing about this mic, a lot of people, they say, oh, I'm going to buy that Shure SM7B or the Shure MV7. But the great thing about this mic is that it actually does both. And it only costs like $60 to $70.
Yes.
So it's a great mic to start with. So for example, if you want to get started, don't buy the $400 mic, buy the $60 to $70 mic, start with on USB. For example, if you've been using your laptop mic, you're noticing it's really noisy, start with the Samsung Q2U, use it for quite a while, and then you can upgrade to this XLR output, which requires an audio interface. It requires a cloud lifter. There's a lot more that it requires. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then I wouldn't feel bad at this point if I had to, if I was like, well, I want to buy that $400 mic. I now have a backup mic that only cost me $70 versus I spent $400 on a mic that may not be useful, again, because if you're not going live, you got to get going. That's the key thing. So again, all about making sure you're serious about live streaming. Okay. So number 4 on how to be a more consistent live streamer is to make it scalable. So Marco, what do we mean by this?
That you can, like I said before, you can commit with that scheduling. I mean, if you can't go live 3 times a week, don't go 3 times a week this week, and next week only 1, and the next week 2 times, and the other week in fewer times. So because this won't make much sense to your audience. Okay, so have this in mind. If you can't keep the ball rolling in the same tune or tone,
yeah,
don't do it, because it doesn't make much sense. Like I said, that guy that came and made 3 videos per day during a week, and then suddenly disappeared.
Yeah. Yep. And when we talk about scalable, by the way, here's the other thing. We just talked about the Samsung Q2U, and we talked about the Shure SM7B and the Rode Wireless Go and the Face Cam, for example, from Elgato. Like, you can scale up as well with your equipment. So it doesn't just mean go like, for example, I'll give you 2 scenarios. So the first one is the person who is really busy, but says, hey, you know what? I want to get into live streaming. So then here's what ends up happening. They overcommit. They say, I'm going to go live every single day, or I'm going to go live 5 times a week. That seems doable, right? But then they forget that they have all this other stuff going on. And so 5 times a week, if they're doing a job and they're also trying to go live and they're also then trying to have a normal life, it means that like it's very hard to make that commitment and then able to scale that up, because you're basically at max at the beginning. So what you typically want to do is you want to start small if you've never done live streaming before, for example. So let's start 1 to 2 times a week. Start small, build that muscle so that you're not sore that next day, so that you're not running around like crazy. Start small, go live. For example, if you're trying to do live streaming on the side, do it once a week, and then move into, and then do it for a few months, get that muscle going and figure out, okay, you know what? when I do that, oh, it's a lot of work. Or you know what? Oh, it's 1 hour of streaming and like 3 hours of prep time. That's 4 hours a week that I got to find.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead, so then you can scale up to 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 times a week. So, but don't think that you need to be at the upper end of that to be successful. Because again, it also comes down to the content. So if you're kind of dialing it in because you don't have a lot of time, don't expect to build much. You're going to build consistency in being a live streamer, but you're not going to necessarily build a community going live that often if the content isn't good at that point.
Yeah.
So make sure it's scalable. Now, the second side that we want to talk about, Marco, let's bring up the Elgato Stream Deck. And when we talk about scaling things up, we love Elgato Stream Deck. And there's quite a few of these. Let's bring up, is that the 32 button one?
Yes.
Okay. So let me find this one in the carousel real quick, by the way. So we got the 32 button Stream Deck. Now, why is this important from a scaling standpoint, Marco?
Because, for instance, and I talk by myself, when I started, I only had one camera, and now I have 5 cameras working at the same time, and I'm controlling them from here. So this is a thing that I scaled, and even though this could look a little bit scary, I think this was built during 6 years of live streaming. It was not in a week. So this is a nice way to and also to keep using the old cameras that maybe they don't work, they are not that good, or you want a better image from the main camera, but they can be useful as well in some situations. So that's why I have this Stream Deck to also this is one of the main features, is to help me to change cameras and use them in my live shows.
So when we talk about scaling up, like we talked about scaling up doing the actual live stream, but we talked about scaling up the equipment as well. So for example, Marco, you have one of these, right? And like
Yes,
out of the box, I mean, this thing can do all sorts of things. So for example, out of the box, if you're using like Elgato products, you can use it to, for example, control some of their products. However, you can also then scale it up to do a whole lot more. For example, you can schedule it, or you can have it do have buttons for like social media posts. So if you want to send out a tweet, you can easily do that. You can go the route of, again, having it potentially switch camera angles. Marco, do you have any that we can demo maybe of this? Like, can we show kind of your shot?
Yes, I think you have. For instance, when I'm doing unboxing,
Okay. Yeah.
I use this camera, okay,
cool.
showing my desk, and this in the top to because I like to be on the camera, okay. Also, let me see. I think when I want to give, and I need to work on this thing about the lights because, and also I have my surveillance mode here. Okay.
Yeah. So here's the thing to keep in mind with this. As Marco mentioned, like he's able to scale parts of his business using this, but the product is scalable, meaning he's not just going to buy this and then all of a sudden, like he's going to be maxed out on it. It's something that he can grow with.
Yeah, absolutely.
For example, there's the Stream Deck. The other product we also like is we like the Elgato. The other one we like is the ATEM Mini as well. So like, for example, Marco's got the Elgato Stream Deck, and these are a few $100s. And then you can also check out the Blackmagic ATEM Mini Pro. And ATEM Mini Pro, there's a $295 version of this. And basically what this does is this allows you to also scale up your cameras. So for example, we're not saying at the beginning of your live streams, go and buy all this equipment. What we're saying is to think long-term. So as you are starting your live streaming journey and you're being more consistent at what you're doing, having some of this equipment, you'll reach a point where you're like, it may be a month out. It may be 6 months out. So for example, if you want to have the ability to display multiple cameras and switch between those cameras, you can do that with this device, but you do not need it to go live and be a more consistent live streamer. So does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yes.
So there's the Elgato Stream Deck. There's the Elgato Stream Deck Pro, Elgato Stream Deck, the ATEM Mini Pro, the ATEM Mini Pro ISO. Like there's various models of this. The $295 one is a great starter one that you can easily grow with. You can plug it. Like, for example, Marco's got multiple cameras. He didn't start out overnight with multiple cameras. He started
Nope.
out with a camera in front of him, and then he moved into some of those other items. So,
Yes.
so that's something you want to make sure you pay attention to. So again, when we talk about equipment, we talk about like, getting all these things for your live streams. You don't need all of this at the beginning. You can scale up to it as you're growing, as you're being a more consistent live streamer. So you want to make sure that you're spending time, again, putting the time in the right place. Anything else you want to
one
add?
thing,
Yeah.
something really important. It's by being consistent on live streaming that you will get the possibility to improve your setup with live streaming. Because it was with the money I made, because I was doing live streaming for 4 years, 5 years, that allowed me to buy new equipment to my setup. So
Exactly.
have this in mind as well.
Oh, excellent points, actually. So again, make it scalable. So for example, like, again, you kind of have to put some of these things into like practice. You think about these things at the beginning, but you want to make sure that you are, again, not burning yourself out like by trying to do too much at one time. And make sure that as you're doing things, like you can quickly scale something or change something to make it scalable. So for example, you'll notice maybe the software you're using at the start is not what you're using 6 months later or a year later. So, but again, the key thing is to get yourself on the track, on the path. So if you want to get into live streaming, this is the thing you need to consider. Okay. So the last item, and I say last, actually we got one, and we got a bonus for you all. And by the way, this is not like, oh, these are exactly the things you need to do. These are things you need to think about. There's a lot more other things, but we want to keep it simple for you. And one other way to help you be a more consistent live streamer is to avoid self-doubt. So Marco, do me a favor. Tell me what this is.
Well, this is the kind of boogeyman for consistency, because
Okay.
you think, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not good enough, I will do it next week because I need to prepare it. Or you just don't do it because you think you're not good enough. So this will be the thing that will avoid you to become better, not doing.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that will stop you from improvement. It's not doing it, because once you made it, you can look back and see, okay, I did this good, and you should be happy because you made it. It's the first thing. You should be proud and happy because you made it. And then, of course, you should look in a critical way to see what you can improve, what you can do better, how you can change, and fine-tuning your thing. But without doing, you won't improve. So this is kind of a snowball effect. So if you start doing, you will see, you will get better, you will improve, and you will get kind of building a shield to avoid self-doubt.
Yep, absolutely. And, and it's super important actually in terms of not doubting yourself. So like we talked about this on episode 90. So if you go to launcher.live/EP90, we talked about imposter syndrome. We talked about 7 ways to overcome imposter syndrome as a live streamer. And here's the thing. If somebody's already doing it, that's great. You know what they've done for you? It's not about the fact that like they've already done it and like, so you shouldn't do it. They've given you a blueprint.
Yeah.
If you think about it, the blueprint's there. Look at it.
A shortcut. Yes. Of course.
Part of it is like, you could go and like, you could watch some of their stuff and see, okay, well, some people are pretty transparent and they'll say, hey, you know what? I made these pitfalls. Take some notes using that rocket book we talked about. Or, you're going to have people like, or, again, like if you go through and you look at a topic and you're like, okay, well, someone else is already doing Amazon Live, for example. Big deal. Guess what? Everybody is unique. There are people that will watch certain people because they resonate with that person. It could be the person's story that hooks them. It could be the fact that it could be the way the person delivers the content. It could be their stream. You could have 2 people talking about the same thing, and you may want to gravitate more towards one other person because of the way they do their delivery, because their streams seem like they're a lot more fun. They're more lively, energetic. So don't doubt yourself just because you go to do a live stream and there's 10 other people doing it. It does tell you one thing. It says, hey, you know what? I'm probably in the right place. But it also says that you don't have to also do the validation, because here's the other thing. Like, a lot of people, they go into it and they say, okay, well, I'm not sure I want to cover this topic. Well, if you've got other people already doing it, I think you're onto something. So don't doubt yourself. Now, I will say this. I mean, if you want to do unboxings of tech products and you're not a tech person, don't do it. I will definitely say don't do that, because in a way you ruin it for everyone else that's doing that. Like, in a way, it actually makes you look bad if you don't know what you're doing in that sense. So if your specialty is, if you're, for example, like, it's not to say like don't ever do it. It's just to say that start out with something that you could talk about, for example, and you use the right terminology. So, for example, we talk about live stream, we talk about, RTMP, and we talk about, like live streaming tools, for example. We talk about the 810 Mini Pro, the Stream Deck, the Rodecaster Pro. Like, we talk about the Shure SM7B, cloud lifters, increasing the gain, all this sort of thing in your live stream.
XLR.
Exactly. And if you're like, I don't know what XLR is, then, and you're recommending like, oh, you should go with USB, like, because you just don't know what XLR is, for example, maybe you're not in the right area. But
yeah,
if you got to find you got to get in the right niche. But the key thing is, don't doubt yourself. Don't doubt that you can't do live streaming in your niche. So avoid self-doubt. Again, check out launcher.live/EP90. That's going to cover 7 ways to overcome imposter syndrome. Okay, Marco, I got one last bonus tip, I guess. And that is suggesting to people to just do it. Because again, you brought this up at the beginning. I thought this was a great point, by the way. And it was the fact that you could have all these fancy tools, you could have all this fancy equipment, but the key thing is just getting started. That's how you be more consistent at live streaming.
Yeah.
You got to do some planning. You got to plan. You got to have you got to make commitments with yourself. So, for example, if you say, you know what, I want to be a better live streamer, put it on the calendar, write it down, hold yourself accountable. That may mean that you have to give something up because you can't do everything. And it doesn't also mean, though, that like if you give something up, you can't go back to it.
Yeah.
So just do it. Is there anything else you want to add to this one, Marco?
Well, I think the main thing is, first, think about the content. Make it useful. Make that people will want to listen to your content. And please don't think that everybody will want to listen to you or nobody will want to listen to you, because when we talk about marketing, there are two people that don't exist: everybody and nobody. There's always someone, hopefully a nice amount of people, that may need to hear from you those tips, that information. So have that in mind. Have that in mind that you will improve with time. Have in mind, if you keep appearing to people, they will trust you. They will look at you in a serious way, and they will say, this person is here to help me. He's doing this for serious. Let's see what he or she has to say. And hopefully, if you do the things in the right way, they can become your viewers, your community, and ultimately your customers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Love this, and so with that, I want to make sure I'm going to wrap, but what I want to basically encourage you to do, again, if you want to be more consistent, you got to hold yourself accountable to things. So, sounds so simple, but really it's this simple. Put it on the calendar, block out. If you want to get into live streaming, block out a time every single week that you're going to go live. You're making a commitment with yourself. You're saying, you know what, self, I'm going to do live streaming for 1 hour a week, and put it on your calendar, hold yourself accountable again. Because remember, like it's not just like and don't just do it once. Do it for 3 months, for example, and see. And as you're doing them, make sure you go and you're continuing to look at your live stream and see what can I do better, what can I improve, what can I, where do I need to improve? Like, how did it go? Get an honest assessment. For example, ask your friends, and then again, start to make it scalable. So you could start out with one way and then turn it into what you want it to become. And again, don't doubt yourself. You got to just do it. You got to just start with your live streams. So with that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in.
Thank you.
This is what episode was this, Marco? I think this was
93.
Yeah. And so again, you can check it out at launchyour.live/EP93. Launchyour.live/EP93. We'll see you all on another episode. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Bye.
Happy live streaming. Bye.
Bye.